We're live, but nobody's on yet. That's okay. We'll give it a minute or two. Normally, I'm playing music. I don't have another device to play music with though, because I don't have Nisset's iPad. So.
Oh, you can't beatbox or nothing. Just gonna leave us hanging like that. Right? Try to be like,
you got one of the Sis albums on your phone?
Right. I do. I got the first one.
I know Renaissance.
Perfect. Pick one of those songs. Let's play that while we wait for folks to join us.
Why you got that on your phone? I don't. I figure that out.
The competition.
I know.
I'll get my aunt Sinette Cortia out in Ungton Water. I'm on the couch by myself today, but I'm not in the room alone. Wepet Maakra is here. Kerhev Hasedi is here. Do our Nessa.
It just started playing actually.
I don't even know if y'all can hear that. Can y'all hear that? The music? I think that's a yes. I saw a thumbs up.
a nice fade there.
I did a better fade this time, right? To another. To another. Okay, my aunt, everyone. To all for joining us today for communion. We're going to go ahead and get started with our opening prayer, and then we'll dive right into the roll call. So, everyone, please join me by saying, Amatu and Panatir. Sauek tu him and Panatir. Audu Auma. Kadipa Heru. The translation is give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything and yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netaru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, the light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as the beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true thought, word, and deed to our highest reality. And in the moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at.
Amen Ma'at.
Ma'akaru.
Ma'akaru.
Dua Netter.
Dua Netter.
So, the roll call, that's the next thing we do when we meet and gather in this space, in this form, in this way. Dua to those of you who are already on the line. I see you, Tanya, joining us from Akron, Ohio. I want to know where everyone else is joining us from. Looks like most of you have opted to join us on YouTube, although we also have our Facebook Live going as well. So you can, you got choices about where you will join us from. But as long as you're with us, I see Bloomfield, New Jersey's in the building. Brother Otto is up the street and around the corner. To Anetta for joining us from so close. That's why I'm Judy Rock. Mm-hmm. Edmond, Oklahoma. I see you, Water. That's what's up. To Anetta. Houghton. Yes. All right. So it's quiet. Let me address the elephant in the room, which is that I'm by myself on the couch. Nassid is not here today. He is taking a break from communion. Many of you know that his mother made her transition to the West a few weeks ago, and so as per our spiritual tradition, our cultural tradition, he is taking time and opportunity to grieve and to process and to do the work necessary to receive her as a new ancestor. And so that work is a lot of internal work, a lot of reflection. And so he's not here today, and that's okay, because I'm gonna do my best to hold it down without him. I'm appreciative of you all for joining me, even though he's not here. And he'll be back as soon as he has worked his way through those feelings and worked his way through that work that he has to do. A shout out to Union, New Jersey. I just saw joined us. I saw some other comments too, but I think I missed them. Dang, my bad, y'all. YouTube comments go so fast. Facebook keeps the comments on the screen longer so I can read them. YouTube takes them away so fast. But that's okay. I do want to acknowledge, though, that a lot of you have reached out to me, have reached out to Nasut to let him know that you're praying for him, that you are thinking about him, that you're extending energy to him, love for him. And I do want to acknowledge that and express gratitude for the prayers and for the energy that you're sending him through this time. I do want to just acknowledge that I believe that he appreciates it wholeheartedly. it has meant a lot to him. And if you have not reached out to him, I thoroughly encourage you to do so. You can send us an email, he'll see it. You can send him a message on his own personal Facebook page. Um, or you can leave a comment on our temple Facebook page or our temple Instagram page, and he'll get a chance to see it or hear about it when the time comes. And I know that he will wholeheartedly appreciate you guys' energy and the outpouring of love that's coming from the community. It means a lot, especially during a time like this. It's really valuable to know that people have your back. And grief and loss is something all of us go through in various ways at various stages in our lives. So to know when you're going through something like that, to know that you are not alone, and to know that you got support and love surrounding you is incredible, honestly. So I just want to say I appreciate you all for extending that love. I'm sure Nasib would say the same thing if he were here. That it just has meant a lot, and feel free to keep doing it as your heart and your spirit inclines you to do so. Um, so today I want to revisit my charge. Back in September, I did a communion talking about, it was titled Comparison is the Thief of Joy. And in that message, I talked about how, in order for us to accept and make peace with the charge that is given individually to us, right? Like, in order for me to be good with whatever it is that is ordained for me, that I have to like love myself, and I have to have self-worth, and I have to have self-esteem, and I have to value myself. And I remember saying that I thought we needed to talk about that. And I remember very clearly that the room erupted in like a like a yes, 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 we must talk about that. Um so I want to be clear with y'all, like I have been thinking about this and reflecting on this ever since then. It has been on my mind and been on my heart that this conversation had to come back around. And it really has taken me every minute of the last 7 months of thinking about this topic and working through this topic to be prepared to address it today. Um, Gosh, even just thinking about a conversation on self love and self worth has required like a magnitude of personal work and a magnitude of like personal reflection um, that has been so necessary, especially with a lot of the things that have been going on in my own personal life. It has required me to really like go within, and I'm still doing that work, even though I'm sharing some of the some of the reflections that have come to that work from that work I'm going to share with you guys today. But I'm still doing that work literally right here, right now. I'm going to work myself through some things, and you guys are going to get to hear that and be a part of that. Um, the first thing that happened when I started to reflect on the conversation of um, self worth was when I asked myself that question, like, where do I start? Where does this conversation start? It took me all the way back to June of 2009. It took me to the day that Nasut called me and charged me with becoming initiated into priesthood. I remember that day clear, like as if it was yesterday. And I remember I was at work and I took his call on like my lunch break. And he was so resolute and finite. Like he was so sure in his tone, in his language. He's like, you must prepare. It is time. You are ready. And I remember, like, I wasn't ready. Like, I wasn't ready. I was like, what? I remember gosh, now I guess I would openly describe it as panic, right? Like I remember the panic that I felt. I remember the uncertainty. I remember the insecurity. I remember like feeling like this feels like a mistake. Like I remember wanting to ask him, like, can you ask the Nesru again? Like maybe you should throw the cowrie shells again. Like, is there any chance you read that symbol wrong? Like, can you ask again? I remember having such a poor reaction. I remember like turning my phone off and going back to work and like not being able to focus and like not wanting to talk to anybody else for the rest of the day. It like legitimately upset me and scared me. It made me so insecure. And I'll be really honest about what made me feel so insecure was like I kept thinking like, do y'all know me though? Like, do you all know the legacy of poor decisions that have led me to this place today? Right? Like, do you all know the actions? Do you all know the behaviors? Do y'all know who I am? Like, are y'all this for me? This is my charge? Like, I I remember feeling bombarded in that moment with like having to face in my own emotions every single thing that I had done up to that point and being like, I don't think I deserve this because of this bad decision, because of that bad decision, because of this poor mistake, because of that intention. I don't think I deserve this. I think this is I remember that whole summer, even after I sucked it up and Nasik yelled at me because after I turned my phone back on, he was like, "Why did you turn your phone off? You panicked. You shouldn't have done that." And I had to go back to my first sound Kemet lessons about recognize, relate, release, resolve, right? Like, and so we ended up having a talk, and he talked me off the ledge, and he was like, "You had a poor reaction. That's part of the lesson. That doesn't mean you're not. If the Netru say you're ready, then you're ready. This is part of the lesson. This is part of what you need to grow through. So we're gonna grow through it, and we're gonna go through it." And so we did. And that summer, I went through my initiation process with him. Kerhev helped me get through that as well. And I remember, oh God, I remember constantly thinking over that summer and even into the first few months, even into the first few years of me being a priestess, God, I hope I don't mess this up. Like, God, I hope I don't like ruin this. I hope I don't ruin this temple that I love. I hope I don't ruin these people that I love. I hope I don't make mistakes. I just wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to get every little thing right. I wanted to prove. I wanted to prove that I could do this thing that I have been trusted and charged to do. I wanted to prove that the Netru had not made a mistake. For so many years, that was my primary motivation, right? Was like, I have to, they've trusted me and they gifted me with this. I have to get this right. And not only was I like in this like prove myself era, in this like validation era, but I was also like unwilling to be seen as being imperfect and unwilling to be seen as um a flawed person because I was so afraid of how people would judge me for my flaws, how people would judge Nasut for trusting me even though I was flawed, how people would judge the temple because of my flaws, how people would judge the Kemetic legacy because of my flaws. I was like, if I mess up, it's going to reflect bad on all of us. I can't mess up. And let's be real clear, I messed up a lot of times. That's just a genuine fact. But I was so self-conscious about it. I was in my head about every choice, about every decision, about every action, and like not just allowing myself the space to have grace and to have compassion and to allow myself to learn and to grow, but like you've gotta get it right. You've gotta, right? It genuinely took me a long time, really, to make peace with my charge. It really did. Um, it took me a long time to make peace with the idea that this idea that having to prove myself was untrue, right? This idea that like having to seek and gain external validation, having to prove myself, that those things were all untrue from the very beginning. I never had to do those things. I was qualified because the Neturu chose me, and I was supposed to have faith that I would grow myself into being who I was supposed to be. And I never had to prove that I was perfect. That was, where did I get that from? I know where I got it from. Like, I got it from looking at other people who were priests and priestesses. I got it from looking at other people in the legacy who were doing so well, who were shining, who I looked up to, who I admired. I was like, God, they have it all together. And here I am, I'm a mess. I don't know what brings everyone to spirituality, what brings everyone to the legacy. I know what brought me to the legacy. I was a mess. And I wanted to find myself, right? And I wanted to be a better version of myself. I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to learn how to make better decisions. I wanted to hold myself accountable. I wanted to grow beyond my current circumstances. I wanted to leave my insecurities and my fears behind. I wanted to feel more confident. I wanted to expand. That's what brought me to the legacy. And so I'm looking at these people who look fully realized, who seem like it's all working for them. They've got it together. And I'm like, oh my God, how could I stand next to them, beside them, with them? It took me a long time to feel like I could. It took me a long time to feel like I should. It took me a long time to feel like I deserved that. And I realized as I'm saying this, that this is just a reminder that comparison is the thief of joy, because for many years, my own ability to enjoy this charge and to enjoy the growth that I come to the legacy to get was marred by my own comparing myself to other people. And it was marred by my own thinking that they had it together and the knowledge that I didn't, and therefore I must be in some deficit. And let's keep it real. None of us go around asking people like, hey, you look really good. Is that a facade, or like what's going on in your life? Right? Like, we don't do that. We look at people and we're like, wow, they look like they have it together. And all the while they have unspoken challenges that they do not share, whether it's because you a stranger and you ain't got no right being in their business, or whether it's because they're not ready to share, whether it's because they don't feel safe being vulnerable, whether it's because whatever the reasons are, that they have these challenges that you just don't know about. And so here we are, like, looking at this veneer, right? And we're comparing ourselves, because we know ourselves. We know what's going on with us. You can never hide from yourself. And so, but what you're seeing of these other people is the portions that they want you to see, right? It is like them coming before they walk out of their house every day, taking that deep breath, summoning up every ounce of strength, every ounce of courage, every ounce of energy that they have to present to the world what they want the world to see. And here you are thinking that you're supposed to be more like that. Here I am thinking I'm supposed to be more like that. And I wasn't. And I got myself to a better place. Do I not for that? But I'm just acknowledging, right, that was a journey. I didn't start there. I did not start there. I didn't even finish there, because let's be real. My life ain't even perfect today. But that's a journey. And I think that's the most important place to start, right? Like, when we talk about self-love, we talk about self-worth, we talk about how we value ourselves, the very first thing that I found myself reflecting on is how much of it is a journey. I realize a lot of us think about our self esteem as though it's a fixed thing. Like, I feel good about myself. I like myself. I love myself. It's a fixed thing. It's not. Your relationship with yourself is not a fixed thing. No relationship is a fixed thing. Your relationship with yourself is no different. It requires the same, it requires more energy, more attention, more care, more nurturing, more consideration than even your any other relationship in your life. And we don't always do that. We oftentimes think we're good. We sometimes do these really brief check-ins with ourselves. And when you just look at what's on the surface, you can ignore what's simmering underneath. You can gloss over the things that you're not ready to deal with and not prepared to face. You can push past. And you can spend a lot of time thinking like, oh gosh, thinking like, I got to tend to this thing over here. I got to do this thing over here. I got this work to do. I got that work to do. I don't have time. I'm going to get back. Look, I checked in with myself. Myself was fine. I'm going to work on these 97 other things. You still good? I'm still good. I'm going to just keep working on these other things. Everything else getting all of your time, all of your energy, all of your attention. You yourself getting your own scraps. Giving yourself like what you have left at the end of the day, which quite frankly is little, if not anything at all. I thought about this in terms of plants, of course, because we are spiritual agriculturalists. We are. And when I also thought about this in terms of myrrh. I thought about myrrh. I thought about the plow. I thought about the idea that you have to cultivate love, that it has to be tended to, it has to be taken care of. So I had to think about this in terms of plants. And again, the idea that just like any love in your life has to be cultivated, has to be tended to, self-love is just the same. But I want to just acknowledge that, like, one of the challenges that comes with self-love is that we often confuse our love for our fruit for our love for our plant. We talked about that last communion at Hanek Ma'at. I know Hanek Ma'at wasn't broadcast on live stream, so those of you who weren't there in person don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm going to get into it a little bit with y'all. But our relationship with capitalism confuses our understanding of what parts of ourselves have value and what parts of ourselves require love, right? Capitalism and Western culture will have you believe that it is the fruit that matters, that it is the things that are produced as a result of caring for the plant. And that's what matters, right? And so in your relationship, in your cultivation of yourself, are you really taking care of yourself because you matter, or are you taking care of yourself in order to produce more? And then what happens if you don't produce more, right? Like, what happens if you become sick, if you become differently abled, if you have a mental breakdown or an emotional breakdown? What happens if you need to take a break? What happens as you become an elder? And as you grow older, your body changes and your mind changes and your relationship with your hands change, and you just cannot produce the same way. If all of your relationship with your worth is tied up in your harvest, then every year as that harvest becomes lighter and lighter and lighter, then your sense of self and your sense of worth diminishes over and over and over. But as we think honestly and truly about the concept of myrrh and the plow, right? Like we have to come to understand that true love is not about the fruit. It's not about the harvest, right? You don't cultivate the soil for the fruit. You don't water the roots for the fruit. You don't make sure that the ground is weeded for the fruit. Like the fruits, you appreciate the fruit. You're grateful for the fruit. You love, like, listen, you might even love the fruit. You might want more fruit, but you work the plant. You care for the plant. You nurture the plant because you love the plant. It has to be applied to the plant first. First and foremost, if it is to be true love, if it is to be true self-love, it has to be applied to the plant without any expectation of harvest, without any expectation of productivity, without any expectation of what you're going to get out of the process. True self-love is tending to yourself and not allowing your plant in your own garden to be overshadowed, to be ignored, neglected, to be thrust into darkness, to not get the sunlight it needs, to not get the water it needs, to not get the care that it needs from you, right? In order for it to thrive. In your garden, as a spiritual agriculturalist, you are literally the most important plant in your entire garden. You have to be the biggest tree. You have to be the most protected plant. You have to have the deepest roots. You have to have the broadest leaves. And that only happens by you watering yourself, nurturing yourself, caring for yourself, fertilizing yourself, weeding out, maintaining your boundaries around yourself, putting and prioritizing yourself first. Some of that's hard. Some of that's so hard because some of us judge ourselves for what I'm not even going to qualify whether or not that judgment is deserved. It's irrelevant whether it's deserved or not. It's just a fact that we do it, right? It's important to acknowledge that we're judging ourselves. We're doing like I did and judging ourselves because of our mistakes. I made bad choices. I hurt someone else. I stumbled. I'm imperfect. I'm not as pretty. I'm not as skinny. I'm not as tall. I'm not as short. I'm not as loud. I'm not as well spoken. I'm not as smart. I don't have as many degrees. I don't have the nicest house. I don't have the nicest car. I don't, even if you don't compare yourself to anybody else, I don't even have the things I want to have. I'm judging myself because I said by the time I got to this age, I was going to have this, and this. I wrote down in my 10-year life plan that this is where I was going to be in 10 years. And now it's been 11 years and I'm still not in those places. And I'm judging myself. I'm judging myself. And that self-judgment, it really is hard to get past because you're internalizing you're internalizing reasons to not like yourself. But the truth of the matter, what I hope all of us come to accept is that each and every one of us deserve to be loved, even and especially with the parts of ourselves that we find undesirable. Each and every single one of us deserve to be loved. None of us should have to hide, should have to judge, should have to dislike parts of ourselves. Nobody should have to change who you are to be worthy of love. Let's be real. I'm not saying don't change, right? That's not what I'm saying. Because if there are things about yourself that you don't like and you want to change, right? You should have the courage to change the things that you can. Isn't that what they say? Have the courage to change the things that you can. But part of that sentence also says, have the serenity to accept the things that you cannot change. And some of us don't do that. We beat ourselves up even when we're doing our best. We could be doing our best and we're still giving ourselves a hard time. We still got that internal dialogue that's saying our best isn't good enough. Let's be clear, best is relative, y'all. Like, best is so relative. My sister friend made her transition to the West back at the end of November, and in December there were some days where my best was taking a shower, pouring libation, praying to the Netzeru, and getting back in the bed. That was my best that day. That was my best. That's what I had. I was grieving my sister friend. I was processing my emotions, right? I was going through my journey. Best is relative. We have a responsibility, even as we're doing our best and trying our best, to accept who we are and where we are in this moment. With the knowledge, right? With the clear knowledge that we're going to have the courage to change the things that we can. That's what you do the work for. That's what the work is for. It's like, I've determined that this is a thing that I want to improve about myself. I know I have the capacity to improve on myself. I believe in myself enough to know that I can improve this. That's what the work is for. You're going to do the work. I'm not saying not to do the work, not discouraging the work. What I am encouraging is acceptance through the process of the work. Acceptance is one of the most important aspects of self-love. If you cannot accept yourself for who you are and for where you are, then you cannot love yourself. And part of accepting yourself is not being ashamed of, not hiding, not regretting, not running from parts of yourself that you think are undesirable or that you think other people will think are undesirable. Part of loving yourself is living authentically and honestly and openly and telling the truth. Part of loving yourself is leaning into the ebbs and flows of the journey, leaning into the ups and downs, letting your life tell the story as it goes. When we talked back in September about the charge, we were talking about how sometimes we can't make peace with our charge because we haven't made peace with who we are, right? And that in order to accept what the Naturu have given to us as our sacred work to do, you first have to accept what they have given to you as your sacred spirit, as your essence, as your life force, as your gift, right? As your charge, as your power. You have to be willing to accept your power. You have to be willing to accept yourself. You have to be willing to be like, man, I've been hard-headed and it's been taking me a long time to learn these lessons. But I'm also really good at articulating these lessons. So doing that for the power of being able to share my lessons with other people, right? You have to be able to accept yourself. You have to be willing to accept. You have to be willing to accept who you are and where you are, even as you're in your process, and willingness to grow and change. Each and every one of us make whatever choices that we can make based off the information that we have in that moment. There's that saying that says, when you know better, you do better. And I'm gonna flip that, because if you don't know better, then you can't do better. Right? Like, keep that in mind. Because when we think back to last week, last month, last year, last decade of our life, when we made that mistake that we wish we could take back, we need to ask ourselves, did I know better back then? Or did I make the best decision that I could make with the information that I had and as the person that I was at that time? Remember, best is relative, right? Best is relative. Did you make the best decision you could make given the version of yourself that existed in that space and time? Forget what you know now. You didn't know that then. Could you have done or made any different of a choice? Why be angry with yourself for being who you were and where you were at that moment in your evolution? Why be angry and unaccepting of yourself for being who you are and where you are at this moment in your evolution? This is a journey. And who we are is ever evolving. Is ever evolving. If we are taking stock of our lives in even the most minimal ways, then we are not today who we were yesterday, and we will never be that person ever again. Even this version of myself that exists right now will never exist again past this moment. We are ever evolving. And that's why Kemetic Proverbs tells us, make your life the subject of intense inquiry. Because in this way, you will discover its goal, direction, and destiny. If you are not paying the closest, if you are not making yourself the subject of intense, if you are not nurturing your plants, if you are making yourself the center of your existence, then you will understand yourself. You will understand your motivations. You will understand your wants. You'll understand your needs. You'll understand how you will come to understand how you've been impacted by your traumas. You'll come to understand what you need to grow. You'll come to understand where you wish to be and why. You'll come to understand your family better. You'll come to understand how to overcome your ancestral traumas. You'll come to see yourself you have to make yourself the center. And I know y'all are astute enough to know I don't mean like going around and making every situation about you. Right? Like, I don't mean like, you walk into a funeral and people are crying and you be like, why y'all crying? I'm here now. Like, this is not your moment, sir or ma'am. This is not about you, right? Like, I don't mean that when I say make yourself the center. Make yourself the subject of intense inquiry. Make yourself the most important part of yourself. Make knowing yourself a journey of self-discovery. Be a scientist when it comes to yourself. What I mean by centering yourself is that I mean that you're weighing every decision that you make, every choice that you make. You're weighing every action that you take, every word that you take against the consequences that about who you are, right? Like, if I say these words, what do they say about who I am? Do these words demonstrate that I'm the person that I want to be? Is this action a reflection of the person I choose to be? Is this relationship? Is this job? Is anything that I'm about to think, say, or do honestly reflective of who I am? And sometimes the answer is yes, reflective of who you are. It's not reflective of who you want to be. That's the thing you work on. That's the thing. By making yourself the center and the subject of intense inquiry, that's how you figure that out. That's how you learn that, man, I'm doing these things and I'm living this life. I'm going to this job. I hate this job. Why 7 years to do this, and I don't even like this anymore. Right? Like, you have to pay attention to you, because otherwise you just get caught up in the routine. You just working on other things. I gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, checking on yourself. You good? You good over there? You're barely seeing you. You're barely working on you. Staying in tune with yourself. Y'all have heard this many, many, many times, right? That staying in tune with yourself is meditation. Staying in tune with yourself is journaling. Staying in tune with yourself is yoga. Staying in tune with yourself is healthy eating and fasting, cleansing. Staying in tune with yourself is getting sunlight and vitamin D. Staying in tune with yourself is grounding exercises. Staying in tune with yourself is getting enough sleep and resting and vacation. Staying in tune with yourself might also be therapy. Okay? We're not continuing that thing in the Black community where we talk about therapy is not useful. We putting a stop to that. Sometimes therapy is what you need to stay in tune with yourself. It is a tool in your toolbox, and you will use it if and when you need to, right? Divination is another tool in the toolbox. The key is to know your tools, to know when to use them, to know how to use them, and to not be afraid to use them in order to cultivate, care for, and nurture yourself. Because that is how you love yourself, right? If you find yourself in a place where you can't say that you do, or you feel like your sense of worth is shaky, or you feel like your self-esteem is challenged, God, I mean, all of us have been in a place where we thought we were good, and then something happened. Somebody does something to us, we lose our job, we get into a fight with, we lose our relationship, something happens. And in the process of grieving, of dealing, of processing, of reflecting, you look at yourself and you're like, yo, I'm not good, actually. I thought I was good this whole time, and I'm not good. It is what it is. That's not really the moment where you need to be mad at yourself. That's the moment when you need to meditate. You need to care. You need compassion. You need to get back to your tools. You need to get back to centering yourself to repair whatever damage has been done from whatever damaging thing has been done to you. That's the moment. And if my reflection on this topic has taught me anything, that moment happens to us multiple times over our life, right? Because if you don't constantly stay on top of taking care of yourself, that hold will slip away so easily, so quickly, and you won't even know. And so we are constantly required to center ourselves, to care for ourselves, to extend compassion to ourselves, to tend to ourselves with love. Yes. And if you don't know that you love yourself yet, care for yourself. Nurture yourself. And that is how you rebuild your sense of love for yourself. By demonstrating that you deserve it. By reminding yourself that you deserve it. By reminding yourself that you need it. By showing yourself that you want it. By putting yourself first. I want to read this passage to you all from the Hermetica. It's a little long, but it somewhat encapsulates almost like a mantra that I tell myself all the time about why I am worthy of love, right? Why I am worthy to love myself, why I am worthy. And I acknowledge once again that I've come and grown into understanding that there's literally nothing that I can do or need to do to prove that I'm worthy. Like I've always been, and you've always been. And I want to read this passage because I feel like it demonstrates that. Man is the most divine of all beings. For among all living things, Atum associates with him only, speaking to him in dreams at night, foretelling the future for him in the flight of birds, the boughs of beasts, the whispering oak. All other living things inhabit only one part of the cosmos. The fishes are in the water, animals on earth, birds in the air. Man penetrates all of these elements. With his sense of sight, he even grasps the heavens. To speak without fear, human beings are above the gods in heaven, or at least their equal. For the Neteru will never pass their celestial boundaries and descend to earth. The gods will never pass their celestial boundaries and descend to earth, but a man may ascend to heaven. And what's more, a man may ascend to heaven without leaving earth. So vast an expanse can his power encompass. By Atum's will, humankind is compacted of both divinity and mortality. He is more than merely mortal and greater than the purely immortal. Man is a marvel, due honor and reverence. He takes on the attributes of the gods as if he were one of their number. He is familiar with the gods because he knows he springs from the same source. He raises reverent eyes to heaven above and tends to the earth below. He is blessed by being the intermediary. He loves all below him and is loved by all above him. Confident of his divinity, he throws off his solely human nature. He has access to all. His keenness of thought descends to the depths of the seas. Heaven is not too high for the reach of his wisdom. His quick wit penetrates the elements. Air cannot blind his mental vision with its thickest fog. Dense earth cannot impede him. Deep water cannot blur his gaze. Man is all things. Man is everywhere. I love that passage. It is such a beautiful reminder of the fullness and the magnitude and the wondrous nature of our existence. We often say that the universe is conspiring in our favor. And when I feel a need to nurture myself, I remind myself that the Neteru conspire to ensure the fullness of my existence. The Neteru have lent me their breath that my lungs may breathe. They have lent me their moisture that I may have blood. They have lent me their earth that I may have bones and structure to my body and my flesh. They have lent me their very spirit so that I may exist. That's why I'm worthy. That is the ultimate evidence of my worth. That is the ultimate evidence of my value. The Neteru have lent me their power their love, their spirit, their energy, so that I could be here and now, at this time, in this place. I'm important enough to be granted this gift. I am important enough to be granted this life. I am important enough to be granted this essence, this spirit. And I lend that thought to each and every one of you. I hope it does something to you like it do something to me. Because I'm sitting here like vibrating, just saying these words. Y'all have no idea the immense amount of gratitude and reverence and love that it places in my heart when I think about the way that all things came together in perfect harmony to make me. And I want y'all to know that too, right? That all things came together in perfect harmony to create you. You deserve the care, the compassion, the nurturing, the centering, the admiration from yourself and anyone else who gives it to you. First and foremost, from yourself. But just in case that was a question, did you deserve it from anybody else? The answer is yes. Yes, you do. You deserve it from any other place where it is granted. You deserve it from every place where it is granted. You deserve it from places where it's not granted. And just because some people do not have it in them to recognize your worth and your value does not mean you don't deserve it. You deserve it from every place. And you can't really make other people treat you well, but you can absolutely give yourself everything that you deserve. That much is in our care to manage. That much is in our capacity to do. To love ourselves well, to treat ourselves well, to see our existence as the very gift that it is given by the Netru, and to handle it like the blessing that it is. That much is in our care to do. That much we can do. And that much we will do. That much we will do. I'm buzzing a little bit, y'all. I'm like, oh my goodness, do I not to? Do I not to? All right. I very much appreciate y'all time, y'all energy with me today. As always, we appreciate the gifts that you all send to us in reciprocity for the gift that you received today. If you feel that you received anything from this message, anything from this discussion, please send your donations by Cash App to $ Temple of Anu or by PayPal to templeofanu@gmail.com. We're so grateful for those gifts and those donations, especially as we continue our work to find a more permanent space for us to continue the work that we do as a community. And so having your support in helping us to continue our communal growth, our temple's growth, is deeply meaningful to us. I hope y'all got the reminder or the save the date notice about Weapon Pet July 22nd. Please save the dates for those of you who are local or those of you who are willing to travel here to celebrate Weprumpet, the Kemethi New Year, with us in July. It's one of the most important holidays on our calendar, and it'll be an event fully open to the public. So we hope that some of you will be able to join us then. We look forward to celebrating with you all then. And in the meantime, we will be back here 2 weeks from today for our next regularly scheduled communion. Doing that to everybody. Shemi Matan.